In this video, we're going to take a look at some good and bad examples of introductory paragraphs for talking about an author's observations. And the topic I have here is about E.M. Forster's novel Morris, which is one of the first novels with a gay protagonist. It was written about 1913, 1914. So the question is, in Morris, what are Forster's observations about sexual orientation? So in this one, the diversity topic is sexual orientation. So let's look at each paragraph, and I'm going to give you a chance to read through that paragraph, pause the video, think about how effective it is, and then I'll come back and talk about it. So let's first look at Introduction A. You can pause the video here. Okay, coming back, this is not a very good example of an introduction because really most of the introduction, that part I'm highlighting, is just a plot summary. It's not focused on introducing any particular issue that the author is talking about. You can't really tell what the diversity topic is. It's just a big long plot summary. You don't want to start that way. The reader doesn't have any sense of what the focus of the essay, what the purpose is. And then the thesis is just one observation. It's very, very vague and it's something people already know. So that observation about sexual orientation is not very good, or at least this writer's presentation of it. All right, let's look at B. So you can pause the video and then we'll come back and talk about it. All right, the problem with this introduction, and it's not a very good one, is that all of the observations are just sort of intermixed throughout the whole paragraph. So the whole paragraph is nothing but a long, elaborated, and somewhat muddled thesis. It has observations buried in here. Forster shows that people are born this way. He can't change. He's not going to be happy until he comes out. But they're really buried there. They're not presented as, hey, these are what the author's observations on sexual orientation are. There's no establishing of the topic, no indication that the purpose of the essay is to talk about sexual orientation. So it's just kind of a muddle there, and there's no clear, single, unified thesis at the end. All right, let's look at C next. So you can pause the video and look at that here. All right, coming back, this is the good example. The first 4 sentences approximately, right about to here, this is sort of a transition sentence. We've got establishing the topic. So he's doing that by giving what the norms were at the time period, kind of the early 20th century, for gay people. What was it like? And using a little research, it's almost a preview of what might be talked about later in the background paragraph, just saying this is what life was like for gay people at this time. And then it transitions into, in the midst of this, Forster wrote Morris, one of the first novels of the gay protagonist. Next, in this sentence right here, we've got the purpose. Through the experiences of the title character, Forster makes several observations about sexual identity and expression, right? So that makes it clear that the purpose of the essay is to look at what Forster's observations are. And you can just make that through a statement like this, where you just say, okay, we're going to talk about what those observations are. And then most importantly, we get the thesis statement here. I'll put that in red, where you actually get what Forster's observations are. And the important thing here is they're very specific, right? That a person's sexual orientation is not a choice, that conversion therapy is ineffective, that a closeted life is miserable, and that a gay man must be willing to sacrifice all these things to find happiness. Those are specific observations. You don't have to read later in order to figure out what his points are. They're all very clear and specific here. And they're also very parallel, which is important, because if they weren't parallel, this sentence would be very hard to read. All right, so this is our good example. Let's look at one more, D, so you can pause the video here. All right, coming back, this is not a good example. It just starts with a big long quote here with no setup. And so the reader's wondering, why am I reading this long quote? What's this all about? I guess it's sort of trying to do some norms, but they're not really presented with any kind of a context that would make that clear. And then when you do get to the thesis, it's a very vague thesis, right? It says his observations are about nature versus nurture. Well, what about it? What is he saying about it? That doesn't tell me. Conversion therapy. Well, what is he saying about it? Is he for it or against it? Being closeted. Well, what's his point about that? Making sacrifices. Well, what sacrifices should he make or not? This doesn't give me any specifics in contrast to the previous one. All right, so these are some examples of good and bad introductions for an author's observations, and if you want to look at the organizational format, you can come back to the earlier video.